Today we're going to look at why Liquid crushed NRG so hard, which they did. It was 3-0, which was a surprise to me, actually. I watched the Thorin's Thoughts video, which I'm sure a lot of people will have, which was saying that, NRG was probably going to beat Liquid 3-2 for a number of reasons, and I actually really agreed with that. And basically the reason for that was that, well, a big part of it was because of the big disparity in the top lane between Impact and Lawlo. Thorin and I both thought that Impact was, over the course of 5 series, going to absolutely crush Lawlo because I don't really rate Lawlo that highly as a player. Impact's a world champion. Yes, Piglet's amazing, but Altec's fairly serviceable, and I think that historically GBM has shown up a lot better than Phoenix in a lot of series. Thorin had this statistic on his show where Phoenix had only won, I think, 2 of his 5 matches or series in playoffs, and those were kind of the loser matches to determine who takes 4th or 5th place or whatever it was. So, 5th or 6th, maybe, whatever. Either way, they'd never won a semi-final as far as I'm aware. So, what went wrong? For me, so much of it was the drafting. I thought that the drafting for NRG was really, really odd in a lot of cases, and I thought that although, yes, Liquid really outperformed NRG in a lot of positions, just across the whole series, they did really well, like, not taking away from them, they played fantastically, but NRG really shot themselves in the foot with how they drafted. They did not give themselves a good chance from the very start of the series. So, what went wrong? Looking at the bans for the first game, we're just going to go through the games and the picks and bans and see what happened. And I think a lot of it is to do with something that's really important when you start drafting is that you have to consider the players that you're playing with. It sounds silly, but you have to understand the strengths of your players and what they're good at, and the same for the enemy team, right? And looking at the first match, if we just talk a little bit about the players first. So I've already said Impact and Lawlo, world champion compared to looked bad on a challenger team last season. And the analysts after the game were saying, "Oh wow, Lawlo really stood up to Impact." He didn't. He really didn't. He got smashed. Even in tank matchups, the CS was crazy. Impact got camped to death, and he still was this incredible shining light on his Gnar pick for the second game. We'll get to that later. So that's drafting, first of all, for NRG, where I'd want to see them put advantages, which is something they failed to do for me. So looking at the mid lane, I think personally that GBM is a much better player than Phoenix for a bunch of reasons. I think he's got a much deeper champion pool. I think Phoenix's champion pool is really predictable. If you give him the chance to play Azir, guess what? He'll play Azir. Apart from Azir, he's got Orianna, Corki, and Zed. Those are pretty much the only other 3 champions he's shown, whereas GBM has all these crazy pocket picks. He's got the Zillion, he's got the Varus, he's gone absolutely ham on LeBlanc and Zed this season. He's absolutely dominated a bunch of games. So I would expect to be seeing GBM win lane against Phoenix. The thing about Phoenix is that, yeah, he's consistent and he's fairly, how to put this? To me, Phoenix is like the Nuke Duck of NA. He's not the type of guy that's going to play aggressive. He's not going to push lanes in. He's not going to make massive roams or solo kills or that kind of stuff unless he's already really ahead. But he will be consistent. He's got a small, fairly predictable but decent serviceable champion pool. And he'll just go even in CS. He'll do well in most matchups, but he's not going to carry the game. And Liquid seems to know that. And, in the same... They're actually very comparable teams, Liquid and Vitality, in that they don't play around the mid lane. They play around their strong side lanes. The side lanes are inverted in the sense that Liquid plays around Piglet and Vitality plays around Cabochard, but they both play with that same kind of side lane style with decent macro shot calling and really strong jungle pressure from Dardoch and Shook. That's my kind of view of Phoenix, is that he's that kind of player. So again, looking from NRG's perspective, I would want to be getting out skill matchups there where GBM can really shine, or where at least he can push the lane out, and where he can roam. So I think that's a really important factor for NRG, is having matchups where GBM can do well against Phoenix and can showcase the fact that he can really like carry a game, right? Your bot lane, that's going to lose. Okay, we know that that's going to lose, but fine. The jungle matchup is also a big question mark. I mean, Moon has not showed up this season, and Dardoch has been really, really great. But so from from NRG's point of view, everything needs to be going into this top lane and to this mid lane matchup. Liquid as a team tends to play around their bot lane, and that's the side that Dardoch is going to play to. And I think that if you're NRG right now, you go, okay, bot lane screwed. We play passive there. We pick nice, comfortable matchups on clean up AD carries. We pick Corkis, we pick Lucians, we pick Sivirs, and we just sit there and wave clear on a support AD carry matchup where it doesn't hurt us that much and they can't dominate us that hard. And then we put all our jungle pressure into the top side of the map to try and snowball Impact ahead and play this like 1-3-1 or 4-1 setup where Impact and Lolo could just be on an island and Impact can dominate Lolo because Lolo, all he plays is tanks, right? All he plays is tanks. He's not good on any other champions. He's decent on, this tank Echo that we're seeing. He's decent on Nautilus. Like maybe he plays the Gragas top. He plays a bunch of stuff. So what went wrong with the drafts? I mean, first of all, the bands seem decent. One trend that I want to comment on is that in pretty much all of the playoff games we've seen so far, Graves has been like perma first picked and banned, which maybe there's something I don't know about Graves here. Teams are putting a crazy amount of priority on him. Maybe it's just the players, maybe it's that Dardoch and Spirit are just incredible in it, and that's why we've seen it banned in like every game so far. But it seems odd to me. Maybe you can leave Graves up here. Maybe you ban Azir instead, but fine. Okay, see what they do for the first game. The bans are fine. Poppy has to go down. Nidalee has to go down. You ban Gangplank against GBM because they're on red side and he's graded it, and you ban Sivir against Ultek because he's a Sivir player. That's like what he was great at when he was on Gravity. That's kind of all he played. He played like Sivir and Lucian on his kind of rise to first place last year with Gravity. So first pick comes up. They get Gragas for Dardoch. That's a flex technically. That's pretty predictable. Either way, it's a tank. Now this is the part that really tilted me, is that they lock in Maokai and Lucian, and this just seems so odd to me. Like, given what we've said about the disparities in the top lane and where NRG's win conditions are, you don't want to pick tank into tank matchups, because Impact can't shine in those matchups. Like, he's not going to be able to solo kill Lolo or push him in or deny him CS or push his towers on a Maokai. So you've already given kind of one of your win conditions away, right? So that's not great already. The Echo and the Janna go down. The Janna is super predictable. You know that Matt plays pretty much only range supports. Like, he's really good on Janna and he's really good on Bard. You can call that coming into the game. The tank Echo is something we're seeing teams prioritize a lot. It seems decent, but again, I'm not sure how that's going to fare against a Trundle pick. I would imagine that Trundle pulls ahead as soon as you get like some tank stats, and Trundle's just going to out-sustain you and push you all day, right? So for the first pick, I would really have liked to see a Trundle pick. After that, in their second rotation, they pick Trundle, and this is awful for me, right? They've already locked in a range support. Your bot lane is going to get dominated anyway. You know that because it's Piglet, and Piglet's like the best AD carry in North America right now. You know, he's above Freeze and Sneaky by a considerable margin, I'd say, and those two are great as well. Your bot lane is not going to do well in this matchup, and picking Trundle there is not going to help that. You've just shown both of your bot lane, and they know that because you've already locked in the Maokai. So you now have a Trundle who is 100% going support, and they're going to go, okay, let's abuse that matchup. So, yeah. They get Kalista, and they get Azir. This is super predictable. If you leave Azir open for Phoenix on blue side, he will take it every single time. You know that. It's like his favourite champion. It's his best champion by far. He's really, really good on it, and he's kind of okay on everything else, right? So this, for me, is super weird. This is really predictable, and if you know that's going to happen, what you should be doing, in my opinion, is picking the Trundle for the tank matchup. You know that Lawler's going to pick a tank. If you want to snowball that lane, you pick a tank. You pick Trundle for impact, and he dominates. You pick a safe lane matchup. Lucian's fine. Lucian's great, but Trundle into a double range matchup is suicide, and in the game it goes completely tits up, and they get absolutely dominated. The jungle matchup, I actually like Rek'Sai for Moon. Why? Because Moon is not great, and I think that all of his efforts in this should be based around tracking Dardoch. All he wants to do is know where Dardoch is, so that he can either like shadow him, so that he can't dive your bot lane because your bot lane is going to get absolutely destroyed, or so that he can be on the other side of the map and completely avoid Dardoch and just try to like stay away from him as much as possible and not get killed, and try and just take the jungle where Dardoch isn't and snowball the impact matchup. Ideally, you just want to avoid that. You want to play on the other side of the map and put all your eggs in the impact and GBM basket and just assume that your bot lane's going to lose, because it is. Like, straight up, it is. It's going to lose. So I like the Rek'Sai for him. And the last pick is the Orianna. And this is, again, it doesn't play into what I think NRG's win conditions are here. It's not a matchup where GBM can actually shine. It's a super passive matchup where they're both just going to sit there and farm for the entire game. You're not punishing the fact that Phoenix is getting his most played champion. If you look at the level of comfort they're getting, all of these guys are on comfort picks. The Echo is a super strong tank, comfort pick for Lawlo. Gragas, like, after the kind of banned out S tier super aggressive junglers, super comfort pick for Dardoch. Piglet, world class Kalista player, incredible Kalista, super comfort pick. Matt on Janna, his most played champion apart from Bard. And Phoenix on his most played champion is it. You've not taken away anything in this entire draft from Liquid. And all you've got is like this fairly average 2-threat comp, which doesn't actually exhibit any of your strengths because mid lane's going to be super passive. Now, like, there's nothing wrong with this team comp in and of itself, but against Liquid, it's horrible. If this were SKT, if this were Faker's Orianna and Bang's Lucian, fine, because those are incredible carries, but Altec is not the carry for this team. You can't be putting all the eggs in your Altec basket, because those eggs are going to break. Piglet's going to stomp all over them. You're going to lose that, and they do. What ends up happening in the match is that it goes really, really bad. You end up with this weird Piglet into impact matchup early game, and the whole thing just snowballs from there. Moon screws up his only decent gank opportunity on Piglet. And yeah, they just have absolutely no way of getting back into it. The bottom lane gets absolutely destroyed because it's Piglet's Kalista and a range matchup advantage into a Trundle who just does nothing. Impact doesn't have any opportunity to shine because he's on a Maokai, and GBM just has to sit there and farm, and Phoenix ends up getting perfect CS numbers, which is to be expected when he's on Azir. So that's the first game pretty much down. Like, picks and bans, it's not very often that you lose a game in picks and bans, but this game was pretty far gone. So yeah, that's game number 1. Let's move on to game number 2. Right, game number 2 is looking much better. What I said, I was watching these games with a bunch of friends, and I was saying, okay, what I want to see from NRG in game 2, they're on blue side now, so I want to see them going super hard. I want to see them picking a matchup for impact that can snowball. I want to see a safe jungle matchup for Moon where he can either just farm or just shadow, like on the Rek'Sai. Ideally, you want Altec on Sivir because that's super cleanup, and I think you want just go really hard, really emphasize your lanes, go for maybe a 1-3-1 or a 4-1, like I said earlier, where impact you can just leave him on an island and he can dominate Lawlo. And this draft goes really well. One thing I want to comment on though is the bans. Lissandra is a really, really common blue side pick, and the whole comp from the left side, from NRG's blue side draft, is super Korean. This is such a super common composition. You get Sivir, Lissandra, and Alistar. Those are your kind of main components, and they must have known that they were going for this already. This is a great composition. It's just really good for hard engage, and it's what you want. You get that double TP advantage. Okay. Everything in this is really good, except for one thing, and it's that they didn't ban Azir, which I found really odd. What we talked about earlier with Phoenix's champion pool is that he's super predictable. His Azir was great in game 1. Got perfect CS numbers. Okay, fine. That was a bad game, whatever. But if you're going to pick Lissandra, what else does he have? He has Corki, he has Zed, and he has Orianna. Orianna into Lissandra, that is absolutely fine. Lissandra can push the wave and she can roam. She's going to have way more pressure with her teleports because her teleport ganks are so much better. Okay, fine. Lissandra into Zed. that's just a great matchup for you in lane. You push him super hard. You counter his ulti at level 6. Like, he becomes much easier to gank because it's actually really difficult to gank. But with Lissandra, it's pretty easy. Okay, great. Corki. Lissandra into Corki's fine. He's still going to push you potentially, but not as much in Azir. In fact, you actually might have a push advantage. It's a perfectly fine matchup. It's a really common one. And you're not putting Phoenix on his most played champion. Like, why not ban the Azir here? I don't see the value of the Echo ban. I think that the Gnar or the Trundle is going to do equally fine into the Echo as it is the Maokai. But either way, they get the Graves first pick, so that's fine. Liquid picks Maokai Janna, which, I mean, I hate this. I mean, why pick the Janna? It's not contested. You have an incredible Bard player. If they pick Janna, you get Bard. Great, whatever. They should have picked Sivir here. This Sivir pick is so telegraphed from Altec. Okay, Piglet's gets the counter matchup with Kalista into Sivir, so maybe that's what they were going for. I can see that. I can see it. The Gnar is a cool pick. I like seeing the Gnar here. It could have been a Trundle, but I think Gnar here is fine. It's anti-tank and it's what you want. Trundle, Gnar, both do the same job in this case. They're both going to be really strong split pushers, and indeed in the game, that's what you saw Impact building into. He goes like Frozen Mallet, and he dominates Lolo pretty hard. And he has an incredible performance on Gnar. Like, I can see why you would want to pick Impact onto Gnar, because he's a really, really good mechanical player, and he has these insane flash over Azir walls into Gnar ultis and all this cool stuff. So that's fine. In this matchup, still, so you get everything you want here. This is great. The only thing I would have said is to ban the Azir instead of the Echo, because I don't, or the Gragas, because what's the point in, if you really don't want to go against the Echo, that's fine, but what's the point in banning out Gragas here? You get Graves, but is Dardoch on Gragas that much worse than Dardoch on Lee Sin? You ban out his Gragas and he's like, oh no, I have to play my favourite most played champion who I have 8,000 games on in ranked, and who everyone knows that I'm this god tier rush level Lee Sin. Oh no. I don't really see the value of the Gragas ban here. I think you ban Azir here instead of that. So the problem here really isn't the draft. The problem here is the execution of the draft, and again, it's playing towards the player's win conditions. So we'll move on to a short clip of game 2, and I'll show you what goes on. Right, so we're into game 2 now. What's happened so far is the first phase of the lane swap has gone down. So the bottom lane red turret has gone down, and the top lane blue tower has gone down, and the lanes are swapping back. Liquid does what they should do in this case, and they go for there's duo lane is going to batter Altec and Conquan, not only because of the matchup, but because they're better just as players. So they go for the standard lanes. That's fine. At this point, really important to notice that Impact is super far ahead of Lolo. He's got this massive bounce advantage because of the lane swap, and he also has a really favourable matchup. So for me as NRG right here, you want to just keep this on an island for as long as possible. And right now you can actually see that NRG's done a pretty good job of warding up their jungle defensively, because they know that Dardoch's going to be playing towards this side, and they see him right there. They see Dardoch. GBM's in a good position with the wave, so Phoenix can't roam. GBM's TP is down, important to notice, for a number of reasons which we'll get to. But yeah, so we'll play the clip out, and what happens is they see Dardoch, they come back, and then they see Dardoch behind them, and Altec and Conquan just run up the lane on their own, and I have no idea what he's doing here. He takes so much chunk damage. They see Dardoch, they see him out of the jungle, that's fine. What really goes wrong here is these two. These two should not be this far up the lane, and they're just going to get slaughtered here. And then we see a teleport coming in from Impact, and it all goes south. Impact dies super quick. Lolo comes in and just presses flash Q, super easy, no problems there. Right, why was this a super bad play? And then they extend up the lane, and it's just horrible. What should they have done here? Look at the bot side. Look at this massive wave they have. And actually, what we talked about already is when the teleports came in, Impact was level 4 and Lolo was level 2. So I see the point of making this play where you teleport over and you have this big advantage on your top laner, this level advantage. But Altec and Conquan are already chunked out, and they already have a level disadvantage because they stayed up the lane way far, like way too far, and Altec lost half of his HP. That's already not looking good from a point of shall we engage, and not only that is that it's actually a really unfavorable lane matchup. Like Kalista Janna batters Alistar and Sivir, so that's not great already. You have Dardoch there, and you have Impact sat there wailing on Lawlow's tower. Look at where the waves are. Like normally in this kind of situation, you'd expect the lanes to be in the same kind of place. So you'd expect to be either the blue side wave on the bottom lane to be way further down, or the top side red wave to be at the tower of NRG. But that's not the case. NRG actually has a massive lane pressure advantage here. In my opinion, what they should have done is just they'd already seen Dardoch in their jungle, so they know that the top lane is a complete island right now. Just leave Impact there and have him wail on their tower. Altec and Conquan don't have to extend up this lane. They can just let Piglet and Matt push that in. Dardoch's going to come. Maybe they try and dive with 4-man, but you've got Graves there, and Graves is incredible at pushing out waves. And Sivir, like Sivir presses Q, presses W, and Graves presses Q and uses an auto attack, and the wave is gone. Like you can't dive or pressure that tower. And meanwhile, Impact is just going to get a bigger and bigger CS lead because level 2 Maokai sucks at CSing under tower, and he's going to deny him and chip his tower loads. Unfortunately, that's not what happens. We end up getting a bunch of kills onto all of Team Liquid, and the whole game snowballs up from there. There are lots more things that go wrong during the game. This is just horrible. I don't know why they extended there, but for me, this is where it all goes wrong. This is the very start of the game, and they've pretty much already lost it here because Lawlow gets so much gold, Dardoch gets so much gold that your top lane advantage is pretty screwed now. I mean, even so, Impact's going to be way up on CS, but I mean, Lawlow has a kill and 2 assists now. He's going to be fine in that lane. He's still going to get battered a little bit, but whatever. And now you've just got this huge, insurmountable jungle and bot lane advantage, which Team Liquid's just going to snowball. So in this case, it wasn't necessarily the draft, although there was, I would say, one small drafting mistake, but it wasn't a big deal. It was just the execution of this, and not playing to their win condition, not playing to the fact that you have this super strong 1v1 matchup. I would much rather have seen the Azir banned purely because GBM is on Lissandra, and Lissandra doesn't do that well into Azir. He's just going to get pushed back to his tower, and that means that he can't have the type of cross-map impact that you want GBM to have on these side lanes. You want him to be able to roam and do all this great stuff, which he could do against all of Phoenix's other picks. But Azir is just going to push him in all day, and he just pushes, gets chip damage on his tower, and gets perfect CS numbers, and ends up way higher on CS than GBM. And that's what Azir does. Like especially Phoenix's Azir. Phoenix is as good as it. So, game 2, NRG needed to play towards that win condition of keeping top lane as an island and really snowballing Impact, and then moving into the 1-3-1. Because Sivir, Alistar, Graves is fantastic in the mid lane, and they actually have double TP advantage. So that they picked the great comp, but they didn't play the composition. They played to try and match teleports in a losing lane when they already had a huge advantage in Impact's lane in terms of the pressure and the minion wave push and the matchup. So that was the big fault there. There were lots of other mistakes that happened throughout the rest of the game, but that's the big one. So that's game number 2 down. One to go. Right, let's move on to the next one. So, game 3. Okay, we're red side NRG, blue side Liquid. What are the bans looking like? So the bans are fairly standard from NRG's side. This is pretty much a repeat of what we've seen for the entire game thus far. Now, what happens again is, okay, they first pick Gragas, fairly predictable. They go for the Janna takeaway again, and they go for... No, they don't go for Janna takeaway again. They go for Janna takeaway. They didn't do it before, sorry. And they go for this Echo top lane pick. Okay, I kind of see what you're going for there with Impact in the top lane pick. Supposedly Echo is supposed to be good at out-dueling tanks, but in practice that's not actually what happens in this game. I would much prefer to have seen a Trundle pick. Why? Okay, so Liquid's on blue side again. So right now, it's not what happens, but I would be predicting them to just take Azir again. They've taken Azir 2 games in a row. It's great. And what you end up seeing is that NRG goes for this Jhin Varus comp. So the Janna maybe suggests they're looking for a kind of poke pick comp, especially with the Elise. They're looking for poke and pick in this draft, right? But there's a much better way of going about that, right? So if you've got a poke comp, there's one top laner that we always see with poke comps, and it's Trundle. And that fits in with what we were saying earlier. Why? Because of Trundle's pillar, like, gives you incredible sieging capacity with the zone control and the slow and the ability to just pop the pillar up and then poke people, and also to disengage with it so that people can't hard engage on you. Fine. So I would really have liked to see a Trundle pick here, and for all the other reasons we've talked about, with Impact absolutely dominating Dardoch, I mean, even pick a Gnar again. There's nothing wrong with the Gnar pick. Impact was amazing on the Gnar. Just this Echo pick is just kind of pointless, and it doesn't really do much in the game for me. The Janna pick, okay, I understand that. They then get Karma Nautilus, so they've got this big old beefy front line with a lot of shielding. What do you not want to do against that is you don't want to pick double physical poke. You don't want to have all your damage coming from one place, because the idea of this is for it to be 4-1, right? For Impact to be off in a side lane, and then the other 4 in the mid lane or in another side lane just pushing and sieging. But you can't do that with only one damage type when they have this kind of massive front line. So what I would much prefer to have seen here is to take a Trundle first pick, and then later on go for a Corki. Like, for your 4th pick, take a Corki. Why? Because Corki gives the option then to flex it into the AD carry role. Yes, he's a weak laner, but you already have Janna, and she's pretty decent. Janna Corki, it's fine. That you know that they're already going to get battered anyway. So, like, you know that they're going to lose to the bot lane anyway. You've seen it twice now. They're not going to win that bot lane. Give up. Put all your hopes on Impact. Lay it all at Impact's feet and just try to win through this split pushing style where he dominates Lawlo. And try and get GBM a skill matchup. He still hasn't had a matchup where he's not just been pushed all day and been able to actually take advantage of the fact that he's a fantastic player and that he's, in my mind, way better than Phoenix. Like, give him a skill matchup against Phoenix. Okay, so I understand that the Varus is on the table still, and Azir is open, which is probably a big part of the reason why they didn't pick Azir, because the Varus pick is still open. But why pick Jhin in 4th instead of Corki? So, I mean, I get that you want to counter the Kalista before it comes in, because Kalista Karma is annoying as hell, but why not pick Lucian? Why not just go for this AD carry that we know Alltech is really good on? And I'm sorry, his Jhin ultimates were terrible. They were awful. Just take the Lucian, take the really safe matchup, Lucian Janna or Lucian Thresh, something like that. You've already got the Janna, so fine. Lucian Janna or Corki Janna, and just sit there and chill and clear. You know that lane matchup's going to go badly. There's no point taking Jhin to counter a Kalista pick when Lucian is open, because he's just going to pick Lucian. Lucian Karma is still going to dominate you in that lane, and also you're really weak in lane swaps when you pick Jhin. Also, if you pick the Corki for 4th, you get a much better option in terms of being able to just flex Corki to the mid lane, and then you could pick Lucian again, and that's fine. You'd have a great sieging comp there. Good siege, good poke, all of that, if you'd pick Trundle instead of Echo, which I really think they should have. And also, Corki gives you the ability to then pick a physical damage mid laner without you only having one damage source against this big beefy frontline, which by the end of the game, Alltech's ultimate hits, I think it's Lawlo or Dardoch, and they literally just sit there and face tank 4 shots, and it takes less than 10% of their HP off. They do not care, because you don't have a damage support, you have an Elise who's going to fall off late game, and you have your split pusher Impact who's going to be building pure tank and not doing that much damage, doing a decent amount of magic damage, but he's not going to be with you. So all of your 4v4 damage, or in this case 4v3, because Phoenix is going to be split pushing on Zed, is going to be physical, and they're just going to build armor, and Lawlo and Dardoch are going to stand in the way, and Karma's going to shield them, and you're not going to do anything. You can't win with that type of comp. It's just really bad drafting, really bad in my mind. If you pick the Corki there, you still have the option of the Varus for the Azir counter pick. You still have the option of a Zed, which GBM is great on, and you can still, if you'd picked Trundle before, then you'd still have that physical damage component. And you could still go for a LeBlanc or something for a skill matchup into this Zed that Phoenix has picked, because I think that GBM is mechanically better than Phoenix. I think in a pure skill matchup he would beat him. But then they lock in Zed, and Varus is such an odd counterlock to Zed. I mean, so odd. They hovered the Ahri, and I think that would have been way better for the pick comp that they were going for. but Ari, even flex the Echo if you actually absolutely have to. But Varus into Zed is so odd. It's really not a good matchup. You're just going to get pushed in for the entire time. Phoenix is going to be able to roam. He actually solo kills GBM, which is not a surprise because it's Zed. Like Zed destroys Varus, especially when you look at who Team Liquid's carries are right now. They're both going to be building Mercurial Scimitar, so your pick comp is not going to do that much in the late game. They're going to be 1-3-1ing anyway. So yeah, they get a couple picks onto like Lolo and Dardoch, but it takes their entire team's burst to kill one frontliner, and they've still got one left, and they've still got all these shields and all the crazy mantra bullshit from Karma. It doesn't go well. This game is much closer, but I think that yes, again, Liquid do really outplay NRG, but this one's much closer. And yeah, for me, it just falls down to the draft. I really have to question the drafting here and the planning because you have 2 weeks to prepare for this, and they are the most predictable team ever. Lolo will play a tank. Dardoch will play either Gragas or an aggressive jungler, which are already off the table, so you know he's going to play Gragas. Matt will play a range support because they want a strong lane for their incredible world-class AD carry Piglet, who is going to dominate your AD carry. And then Phoenix is just going to pick whatever goes with that in order to not get matched up by GBM. The drafting here really needs to be better. So yeah, NRG really failed to play towards their players' strengths and the strengths and weaknesses of their opponents in their pick and ban phase. And that, for me, is the biggest reason why Liquid beat NRG. Thanks for watching. That's all from me for today. I'll try and make some more videos for the playoffs, for the rest of the playoffs later. Maybe I'll make some European ones. Now that I have some decent recording software and the audio is not super horrible and crackly, I'll try and be more proactive. Take care of yourself.